Now to Eliana Ros-Lehtinen.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. As we know, the U.S. has been negotiating in secret with this sadistic dictatorship for now 20 months because it's still secret. For 18 of those months, the White House negotiated in super secret to trade 3 convicted spies for an innocent American. Even if you say that that was not a swap, that's just so disingenuous. Assistant Secretary Jacobson, this week in the Senate, just yesterday, you testified, quote, "This policy is not based on the Castro regime changing," and you've said more or less that now. "We have no illusions over that," end quote. So let me get this straight. We are telegraphing to the Castro regime that ahead of time that it doesn't have to change. We have no illusions that it's going to change. So we're going to get further concessions from this administration. What is the point of negotiations? We say we're negotiating. We have no illusions. Let's see where this leads us. Now, the media have been reporting just this week that arrests in Cuba for last month, in January, decreased to only 178, making it seem like the arrest of peaceful pro-democracy activists, 178 of them, is a low number. Only in Castro's Cuba could the arrest of 178 people in 1 month be considered a victory. Now, for the President's State of the Union address last month, I invited Marlene Alejandre, the daughter of Armando Alejandre. They were also kept in the dark about this trade, non-trade, this swap, non-swap. Her father was murdered by the Castro regime when his Brothers to the Rescue plane was shot down over international waters. And on December 17th, the President released and pardoned Gerardo Hernandez, a Cuban spy who was convicted in our U.S. courts for conspiracy to commit murder for his connection to the shoot-down. So the Alejandra family wanted me to ask you these questions, Assistant Secretary Jacobson. How will I explain to my 3 little girls that their U.S. Marine Vietnam veteran grandfather was denied the only justice for his murder when Gerardo Hernandez was set free, pardoned, and returned to Cuba? Next question, why was the U.S. so willing to give Gerardo Hernandez the opportunity to father a child while he was in prison? Very interesting, when some of the victims of the shoot-down will never be able to have children of their own. Now, as if negotiating in secret is not bad enough, the Castro regime continues to defy this administration, as the chairman had and the ranking member, setting preconditions publicly on the negotiations, such as demanding the return of the land of Guantanamo, which is so vital to U.S. national security interests. It's so pathetic for this strong, wonderful, generous country to look so weak when negotiating with the Castro regime. Isn't it true that Cuba owes American taxpayers at least $8 billion in certified claims for the unlawful taking of property, of businesses, of unpaid debts owed to the American citizens? Isn't it true that Cuba has failed to pay these claims for close to 60 years? And isn't it true that U.S. law requires that these claims be resolved before relations be normalized? So I urge all of your departments to explain how illegally confiscated properties will be resolved. U.S. claim holders deserve their claims to be protected. Don't you agree? And Assistant Secretary Jacobson, it is important to note that what the Castro regime will do with this new assistance that President Obama is going to provide on telecommunications. Now, in 2012, Pope Benedict visited the island. As you know, the Castro regime responded with rounding up and arresting hundreds of civil society individuals, and he blocked the phones of the opposition leaders. And as we know, Castro held an American jailed for 5 years for trying to provide internet equipment to the Jewish community in Cuba. So the track record is clear about Castro and his hatred of this telecommunication equipment. And in this latest misguided talks, the Castro regime asked the U.S. interest section to stop providing internet services for the Cuban people. So his track record is no intent of opening up the internet or telecommunications opportunities. In fact, if given that opportunity, it's probably going to be used to further oppress the people of Cuba. And then just one last, and you can answer it whenever you can in writing. Did Secretary Kerry lie to the United States Congress when he told us that we would not free up these convicted these convicted spies, or was he kept out of the dark of these negotiations? And were you part of the negotiations from the start, or did you enter them later on? But I've run out of time. Thank you.
I'm just going to suggest a response in writing, and that way we can go to Mr. Bradshaw.